Like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Halinga, if you could, Clerk Halinga, if you could call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen,
Present.
Mayor Brown, Councilmember Sweet, Councilmember Tucson,
Here.
Councilmember D Simmons,
Here.
Councilmember J Simmons, Councilmember King.
Here.
With row present, there is a quorum.
Would I entertain a motion to excuse those three council members who are not here?
I second that.
We'd have to-
I move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand as you are able and join in a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance, if that is yours. So good. I don't even know if I remember this. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. There's been some discussion about the agenda for tonight. I've had a conversation with Mr. Barr about the first ordinance on here and how we can go about taking this off the agenda for a future date. That can be done.
Quick question. Are we moving straight or are we doing this first?
Well, we're going through the order here, the agenda approval, and then
Oh, okay.
what we'd like to do is deal with the agenda. And then the clerk has mentioned that there's not many people here for public comment, moving that till after the work session. But let's deal with the agenda right now. So from conversation with Mr. Barr earlier today, it's possible to take the ordinance 1408, amending Chapter 7 of the Ypsilanti City Code, and take that off the agenda, and which time, with the approval of the council present, and then take that up at another time. At this point, we don't have to specify that time, but what we do need to do, Clerk Halinga has pointed out that if we take this up by the 21st, we will be in a time crunch for the moratorium on permits that we have. And so in order for us to stay compliant with that moratorium, what we can do on the 21st is to have an emergency ordinance that will cover us for 60 days. And I think that's about as much as we need to deal with the ordinance at hand, and then we can bring that up and pass that within that time. So if I'm correct, Mr. Barr, I can just move to take this off and people can do a voice vote to do that.
What I recommend is that there be a motion to approve the agenda with that item removed.
So I would entertain that motion from anybody who's willing to make it.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. And that's a roll call.
It'd be a voice vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
So that would include moving the public comment to after the work sessions and then removing the ordinance.
Correct. And then with the stipulation that staff bring a resolution for the emergency ordinance to the next meeting, so we can work that through. And discussion item to talk about the timeline for. With that, I will hand it over to City Manager McMullen for the work session for the police chief search.
Thank you,
I
Mayor
wanna
Pro
welcome
Tem
Joyce Parker.
Wilcoxen. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Joyce Parker is here with us again, and we're going to go over the police chief search to give you an update of where we are and how we will proceed. I will start off with a little bit of information. Well, I'll let Joyce go ahead and start off. and she'll give you the information about the candidates and how we should move forward with you deciding which candidates to interview. So Joyce, I'll let you start. Andrew, if you could put the presentation up, and we'll start with the graph, which is your second page.
Okay, thank you, City Manager McMullen. Good evening to Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, and those that are in the audience this evening. As the City Manager had mentioned, we went through the process of advertising the police chief position, and we advertised the position approximately 45 days. It was extended beyond the 30 days primarily because of the holiday. And as part of the process, we received 8 applications for the position. And of the 8 applications for the position, we did have 1 candidate withdraw. In addition to that, 4 of the candidates were from outside of the state of Michigan. And so once receiving the resumes and the applications, I did have an opportunity to interview each one of the candidates for the position. In addition to that, through the Michigan Municipal League, we conduct a social media check as well as a reference check related to the candidates. So that process was done as well. What I'd like to do as far as the information on the PowerPoint presentation, I'd like to briefly talk about the qualifications for the position and how the candidates ranked in terms of meeting their qualifications for the position. So on the chart, there are 7 candidates. They're evaluated based on your criteria, which included a bachelor's degree. A master's degree was desired or preferred, but was not required for the position. You required 5 years of experience in a command position in law enforcement and police involvement. You required the position and those applying for the position to be certified, to have executive training in human resources and labor relations, training in budget and finance, and intergovernmental relations. So each one of the candidates were ranked based on the requirements for the position. I would also point out that 7 of the 7 candidates, 6 of the candidates met all of the requirements for the position. There was 1 candidate that did not meet all of the requirements in terms of human resources, labor relations, limited with budget and finance, and did not have experience in intergovernmental relations. So just wanted to point that out. Before moving forward, are there any other questions or any questions related to the summary?
Does the order have any significance?
There is no significance with the order. It was just a matter of designating each candidate by number. So the second report that was prepared is related to the potential semifinalists for the police chief position. And that information is provided in a memorandum dated March 3rd. If you'd like, I can go through each one and answer any questions that you might have related to each one of the candidates. Okay.
They don't have a copy of
I don't have,
Oh, okay. I was just thinking,
that.
I was like,
Yeah, they don't have a copy of that. Would you like us to provide copies? We
Um,
can, if you want to wait.
it
a
would be
moment.
great if we can follow along.
Sure.
yeah, I can read it if you'd like, and I could do that.
I'm a very visual person. If we could get a quick copy, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, Andrew, do you mind making some? Okay, thank you. While we're waiting on Andrew to do that, I can move right along to share the process that we've come up with thus far. And it's having 2 rounds of interviews. And the dates are tentative dates. In your PowerPoint, you'll see we have Thursday, March 23rd. An optional date that's not there is Friday, March 24th. With the final interviews being held on Thursday, March 30th or April 6th. And so we're shooting for the March dates, but those are tentative at this point, almost settled.
The alternate
first-
for the last one was April 6th.
Well, that's like the last possible date if something doesn't pan out. For the Thursday panel interviews, we have designated 1 hour per interview. So it just depends on the number of candidates that you guys decide should move forward. But what we're looking at hopefully is 15 questions, hopefully max. Since it's an hour, maybe 3 minutes per question, as we did for the people interviewing for the ward seats. I thought that worked out really well. And you don't run out of time. These are the things that we would also make known to the candidate that they would have this amount of time. I think then we can make sure that they get through all of them. And then it would also leave 15 minutes of just question and answer, since it's an hour. So that's being proposed as a format. And for the final interview of the 2 finalists, we are proposing to have a day with them that where they will tour the city. And then we'll have 1 hour interviews with both of them. Then we'll have community Q&A, community feedback, and a meet and greet that will be hosted by YPAC. So the location is still to be determined, but we do have 2 very good ones in mind that will be able to hold the public. So I'll be talking with Gail after this to go over the format. If the format for the meet and greet will be one where we'll take the questions, and if they'll host them and do the cards, some way to engage the community with the 2 candidates. And the questions, we have not put them all together yet. Some of the questions are overlapping. I have questions from Ypsilanti Police Department, and I do have some questions from a few council members, as well as not necessarily questions, but qualifications that I received from YPAC. And so Ms. Parker will take a look at all of those and have a good mix according to what we said we desired to see. And that's all I had, which is great. It was just an amount of, they're just right, the amount of time. If you see the panel people, the panel members, or the selection committee, you'll see that it's Mayor Brown, myself, Chief of Police of EMU, Sheriff Jerry Clayton, Chief of Police Matthew Harshberger, Marlene Radsnick, Chief of Police of Saline, Gail Wolkoff of YPAC, Reverend George Waddles, Patton Doyle, and Lee Tucson. So that is, and if you have any concerns or suggestions, please make that known. But all of these people have confirmed, except EMU, he is out of town, but I believe he's willing. I talked to Brent and he said he'd be willing. So we put him on here. And so, yeah, that's all my presentation at this time. Joyce, you can continue. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify. So in terms of these interview panel members,
Mhm.
I'm just trying to, because you were saying if we had questions, or I'm trying to get a sense of like, well, what is the range of question or suggestion that we can have, right? At this moment, because I'm just wondering, it's really obviously really heavy on different other police leaders. And I'm trying to remember back when there was a conversation about different folks or groups to have included. And I'm just wondering, why was it selected to have this strong of a representation of these other kind of police departments and not in some of the other areas that we had talked about?
So all of these won't serve together. A couple of them will serve on the finalist committee. But I thought that do you see an area that's not represented so that I can go back and see what we can do? What area do you see that's not represented?
Well, I probably have some different thoughts. But I guess, I think it doesn't really matter if this is the group, so that's why I was trying to see, like, if this is the group of people, then I don't really have, I can just let it be. But if there's room, I would just look back. I'm just wondering, so you're saying that all these folks won't be like on a panel at the same time. And so you want to just make sure that there would be representation during.
Right, correct. Some of the law enforcement people can only be there on one day and not the other. And so we split it up
Mhm.
so that, and plus you don't want to have too many of the same on at one time. So. But what area
And
are you
then
concerned?
And then for questions, how are the questions going to be selected? Like, will the committee kind of choose from the different questions that are presented, or will they all be kind of put forward, which is what I understood, that we were kind of putting questions forward.
Right, and
the
those are the
committee
questions that I'm forwarding to Joyce. So that we can pick, as I was saying, about 15 of those questions. And I think we have a pretty good understanding of what we're trying to get at. Some of them are overlapping, some of them are general. I think, and we're also going to look at questions maybe that she's asked previous times in police chief interviews, but we're basically focusing on the things that we're looking for. And I think the questions that I received were very good, and I did forward them on to her, so they will probably be included.
Great. And then will we,
It wasn't even 15, so we have a little bit of room.
and then you'll share the questions with us. We'll know what those are once, what they get asked.
I mean, if you want to know that ahead of time, we can do that. I mean, can we do that?
Yeah, I was just going to also share that I'll be providing to the city manager as well draft questions, about maybe 10 to 15 questions. And then she's requested questions from the city council and from the department and others. And then based on what is received, the
We'll combine them.
panel will, or either the city manager will select maybe so many questions in order to make sure that we have enough time to conduct the interviews within that 1 hour time frame.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's helpful. Obviously I think, when so many on council are not involved, that, with questions will matter a lot. And so that's why I'm just trying to figure out what that looks like. And if the committee is going to kind of pick and choose, that feels a little less comfortable to me, because they could just decide not to ask certain kinds of questions, right? So that means we won't get that information. So that's why I was trying to figure that out a little bit.
Well, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I think all the questions that we've received thus far are very good questions. And we have no intention, I know I don't, of excluding questions where we need answers to. The more specific, the better.
Mhm.
And so those are the questions that I'm looking for, the ones that came from the public, that came from us, as opposed to the more generic, fluffy type.
Mhm.
I'm a little apprehensive though about releasing the list of questions, because you just don't want that to get out, like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm fine for it to not, I don't need it like tomorrow, right? Like I'm just.
No, I
would
mean
like
at
to know.
all. I mean at all before they actually interview, because you run the risk of,
I just want, that's fine. I just want to know what questions they've asked and answered. So it's fine for me to know afterwards. It's okay.
okay.
Is it also possible to see the meeting before and return them to you? I mean, so we don't have a record of it.
I'm not opposed to that. Miss Parker, are you opposed to us having, and does it have to be, how should I say, Mr. Barr, does it have to be publicized? We have to be on record, right?
Well, if you make the questions public, it has to, and it's subject to FOIA. Before the questions are asked, you can hold them in a secret and they're not subject to FOIA. I'd suggest that, I think you mentioned, have the questions and answers after the fact. Unless council has some questions they want to have asked, and then they can ask you that now or before the interview.
Mhm.
Right, and I did ask for questions, and so I did forward the 3 that you gave me to Ms. Parker, and the ones that I've received, even from YP. So we're, that is our core.
Great, thank you.
Just need you to trust us to ask the questions.
I trust you, Francis.
Oh.
I don't trust everyone, Fran.
Thank you. So any other questions so that we can proceed? Ms. Parker can continue. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with the memorandum, the March 3rd memorandum, it basically outlines the process in terms of what's taken place to date. Again, we have like 6 potential candidates for consideration, and 5 of the 6 candidates are recommended for interviews.
7. We had 7 on there?
Only 6 were eligible, right?
Right. There were 6 that met all of the requirements.
Okay, okay.
We had 1 withdrawal.
Mhm.
And then 5 of the 6 candidates are recommended for interviews and are identified with an asterisk in this report. The candidates are listed by number to allow for confidentiality until such time a candidate is extended or accepts an invitation to be interviewed. And then once the interview is accepted, the candidate's cover letter, resume, reference information, and other information will be forwarded for review and preparation for the interviews.
So can we stop there so that we can get a good understanding? Because I've been getting a lot of questions regarding releasing the names of persons who we are considering. So tonight, they're still only by number, and they can only be identified once they've been.
Actually accepted the interview.
Right. Okay, so I'm saying it, I'm repeating it because people will ask you as well. So we need to tell them that they'll be revealed after they've accepted the interview. Thank you.
Explain the asterisk again, what does that mean?
The asterisk identifies those that are being recommended for interviews. So during the telephone interview, each candidate was given several questions dealing with their background, experience, skills, and abilities. And several other questions were discussed with each candidate to gain a better understanding of how the candidate will fit overall with the organization. There were a number of comments made during the time that I met with members of the city council and with the city manager. So as part of my interview process, I factored in some of the issues that you referenced during that meeting to see what the response was. And then from there, there's a summary related to each one of the candidates. Starting with candidate number 2. The candidate has a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice, a Master of Science degree in criminal justice law enforcement administration, attended the FBI National Academy Session 271, and attended Senior Management Institute for Police. The candidate was recently employed as chief of police in a city with a population approximately 75,000 for 2 years. And then prior to the position, the candidate was employed with the same organization since 2004 in several positions, including sergeant for 6 years, inspector for 2 years, lieutenant for 2 years, and executive lieutenant for 4 years. And then prior to this employer, the candidate was employed in another city in Michigan with a population of approximately 600,000 as a police officer for 5 years. Your question?
No, I was just kind of narrows it down, right? There's not too many cities in the state of Michigan that have
Yeah,
600,000 people.
that population level. That's very true. Okay. The candidate started law enforcement in a large department and worked as a police officer, and later became chief of police within the department that the candidate left. The department has 250 sworn officers and a budget of 32 million. And the candidate is interested in the Ypsilanti police chief position because of an opportunity to make an impact and can use current skills developed over the years in law enforcement. The candidate retired from the department in 2023 amid some allegations related to sexual harassment. And the conclusion of the investigation stated a clear pattern of unwelcome sexual harassment by the chief. The candidate received a settlement that allowed the chief to retire with a 1-year salary as severance. And the last salary was $155,000. I should also point out, as we go through this summary, most of the candidates' salary range is probably higher than your range. In my discussion with the candidates, they've indicated in some cases they are retired and is willing to negotiate something less, and would like to continue in the process, recognizing that their salary may be higher than what is being advertised through the city. Candidate number 3 has a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice Administration, a Master of Science degree from Columbia College, attended the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board Executive Institute, is certified in Illinois, has training in discipline and termination, roles, policies, and procedures, and several other certifications and trainings. The candidate was employed as police chief in Illinois in a city with a population of 6,000 for 9 years. The budget was 1.5 million for the department. There were 7 full-time police officers and 7 part-time officers. The department has several divisions, which is to a great extent a full-service police department, just on a smaller scale. The candidate left this position in November 2022 due to a change in direction, and the candidate resigned from the position. Previous to this position, the candidate was employed in Missouri for 11 years in various positions, including 911 dispatcher, public safety officer, and public safety lieutenant in a city with a population of 12,000. Comments from the interview said the candidate started the career in law enforcement in Utah and animal control. The candidate's strengths is with the public and other city officials. Has a strength with staff development based on the employee's strengths and interests. The candidate is strong in human resources and labor relations, motivating employees to be their best, and development and managing the department budget. The candidate is interested in the police chief position because the position will allow the candidate to work in several capacities that is familiar as well as unfamiliar. The last salary was $92,000. Candidate number 4 has a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice, a Master of Science degree in Criminal Justice. 2022 enrollment in Northwestern University Center for Police and Staff Command. Enrolled in Purdue University Online Juris Doctorate Program. Is certified by the Missouri Department of Public Safety. Is also a Missouri Class A Peace Officer. Attended the Missouri Sheriff's Association Training Academy and several other trainings and certifications. The candidate has 13 years experience in law enforcement, has fire service experience, and has served in emergency management. The candidate is currently employed in Missouri as Chief of Police for 5 years in a city with a population of 6,000. The city has 12 patrol officers and a budget of $738,000. The department is a full-service department, and the candidate is responsible for all aspects of the department, including leading police personnel, the development of a patrol response team, working with schools and surrounding agencies to develop an emergency response plan and scenario-based training. The candidate has been previously employed as police chief in Missouri for 6 years in 2 other communities in Missouri. Both departments were small departments with police officers staffing at 9 patrol officers and 7 officers respectively. The candidate also served in various volunteer positions, including a reserve corporal, a reserve deputy sheriff, volunteer firefighter, and deputy U.S. Marshal on an Eastern Fugitive Task Force. The candidate considers being a working police chief and is involved in every aspect of the operation. And again, has 13 years experience. Primary skills is strong leadership skills, ethics, and experience in human resources. The candidate also hired and trained all officers within the department and is interested in the Ypsilanti Police Chief position because of the area. And the candidate is in a position where the candidate can relocate. The candidate is also interested in a larger department and is prepared to do so based on the candidate's background and experience. Current salary, $57,120. Any questions so far? Should I just continue? Okay. Candidate number 5 has a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice, a Master of Public Administration, and Organizational Leadership degree from National University. Is certified as a peace officer in the state of Nevada. attended the Senior Management Institute for Police, has coursework in political science with Tennessee State University. The candidate has 30 years' experience in law enforcement and started career in corrections for 7 years in Tennessee. The remaining employment has been with one city in Tennessee with a population of approximately 300,000. The candidate has served in various positions, including Sergeant, Uniform Services Bureau, Lieutenant, Watch Commander, Uniform Services Bureau Captain, Training and Community Division, and currently as Captain of the East Patrol Division. The candidate is also responsible for managing a division budget of 13 million and has 75 sworn officers. Candidate has diverse experience in practices, procedures, and methods of modern municipal police operations and administration in a mid-sized to large agency, and has established a record of achievement in labor relations, policy development, benchmarking, best practices, and problem solving to achieve organizational goals. The candidate is eligible to retire and has been for 2 years and continues to work in the profession for improvements and making the organization a better place. The candidate is familiar with community and internal issues in Ypsilanti Police Department and has the experience to address issues based on experience in the candidate's current position. In terms of strengths, skills, and abilities, they include being transparent and trustworthy. The candidate created a public information program. The candidate is also an excellent communicator and provides information in a timely manner. The candidate has the trust of the community through the integrated community policing strategy underway in the community. The current salary is $187,000. Again, the candidate stated that there's recognition that the salary is less than what is stated in the candidate's salary, is willing to negotiate. Candidate number 6.
Can I just ask one question? So far, this is the only candidate that doesn't have experience as a chief,
That's correct.
but comes with 30 years of experience in a fairly large organization. At
Yeah, it's a fairly large organization. Yeah. But you're correct.
Okay.
Candidate number 6 has a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. Attended the Oregon Executive Development Institute, the Grand Rapids Police Leadership Institute, the FBI Enforcement Executive Development Association, State of Michigan Firefighters Training Council, and the Oregon Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. The candidate was recently employed with an airport police authority in Alabama for 18 months as police chief. The candidate was responsible for the administration and management of the department. And previous to this most recent position, the candidate was employed in Oregon as a lieutenant in special operations for 3 years and in patrol operations for 1 year. The candidate was also employed in Michigan with a population of around 75,000 as a sergeant for 5 years and other police positions for 6 years, including FTO supervisor, background investigator, recruiter, hazmat technician, and public safety officer. The candidate also worked in another city in Michigan as a police officer, cadet, and police service officer for 3 years. The candidate has worked primarily in Michigan in a public safety department. And strengths include high energy level, being dedicated to the profession, and willing to work the hours necessary to get the job done, and is considered a hands-on manager. The candidate is interested in the position because of being familiar with the city and prefers to work in smaller communities because of the impact that can be made. The candidate continues to be certified in Alabama and can apply for certification in Michigan by taking a refresher course. The candidate received a written reprimand during the time served in Michigan for improper use of force several years ago. And the candidate also resigned from a previous position due to comments made to another officer. Last salary was $87,200. Candidate number 7 has an associate degree in general studies, a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology, a Master of Science degree in business administration, and a Master of Science degree in technology studies. The candidate is certified through MCOS. The candidate also attended the CALIA accreditation program in Gainesville, Virginia, and is considered an accreditation manager. The candidate also attended the FBI National Academy and the Police Staff and Command at Eastern Michigan University. The candidate is currently employed as the Michigan representative for a software firm that sells software and technology. And prior to this position, retired from the police department in Michigan. The city population is approximately 90,000. And the candidate worked the entire career for this department in various capacities, including sergeant for 5 years, special services and patrol lieutenant for 4 years, and deputy police chief for 5 years. In terms of strengths, skills, and abilities, the candidate is an excellent communicator and puts the community and others first. The candidate has experience in developing and monitoring the budget, hiring and recruitment, and intergovernmental relations, and is interested in the Ypsilanti Police Chief position because the candidate is familiar with the area and continues to have the goal of serving as police chief. Last salary, $131,000. So those are the candidates interviewed for the position, and information received as a result of the interview process that I had underway. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Councilperson Simmons.
Thank you. So this is just, so I'm just trying to keep clear. So these numbers correspond with the numbers that are in our chart. So number 1 isn't on here because didn't meet the qualifications.
Meet all of the qualifications.
Didn't meet all of the qualifications. And then number 2 is on here, but based on the asterisks is not being recommended for an in-person interview.
That's correct. However, with that candidate, the candidate does qualify in terms of meeting your requirements, and that is the reason why the candidate is on the short list, because the candidate qualifies based on experience in various departments.
Okay. And then this is just for, I'm just like trying, are we supposed to be saying, yes, move forward with candidates or not? Like, are we like based on this, on some of these things, are you looking for suggestions from us?
Well, I think what would be beneficial for me is to get your feedback related to the candidates, those recommended, those that are not recommended. And if you concur with the recommendation, or if you'd like to take a different approach, certainly clearly something that you can do.
Okay, thank you. And so with that, that's helpful because I was just, again, I just want to know like, what are the bounds I'm looking at? Because kind of going through this, thank you for these notes. Even though they're just a snapshot, they give like little bits of information. We're going into our detective mode. I guess I shouldn't say that, I guess. Since I'm not qualified to be a detective or licensed or anything. But anyhow, so when I look at some of these, you know, one of the things I thought, you know, in terms of candidate 2, you know, I was thinking when I saw they weren't being recommended that it could have something to do with these investigations, which I would agree with. I don't know if that's the case, but I would say like just in general that I would be very hesitant to even put somebody through a process that has a investigation that shows a clear pattern of unwelcome sexual assault harassment. So, I mean, I think that feels pretty clear to me. And it's unfortunate being one of the people who's from a city in Michigan, but I think that, you know, probably feels clear to me. And then the other thing I was going to say, which is that it's almost candidate number 6, you know, some of these I was, you know, want some more information. Candidate number 6 is, as you were going through, there were some things that I was like, oh, that's interesting. And one of the things that I was thinking is interesting is that they were employed in Oregon, which I know, I mean, obviously, depending on where they are, like every place isn't the same, but I do know that there's a lot of interesting things happening in police departments in some parts of Oregon. And so that seemed interesting, but then, you know, of course, I had like a sad face when I saw the improper use of force, reprimand, as well as other, you know, having to resign due to, you know, comments. So anyway, that was a little up and down for me. And
May I interrupt you for a minute?
yeah,
I'd like to go through this in terms of each candidate, and each council person can comment on that as we go forward, rather than each council person going through all the candidates at once. So if we can,
Okay.
if we can do that, then we can get input from other folks on candidate number 2.
I mean, I share the same sentiments with candidate number 2 with the whole sexual harassment thing. I'd probably X that off of my list as well.
I guess I would agree. It was a little disappointing because I felt like everything else leading up to that point was a positive and a plus for the city of Ypsilanti.
Right. I concur, and the recent nature of this, I mean, just January of 2023, it's not like this was something that happened several years ago and the person had time to learn lessons and things like that. But this, it seems like walking out of one position to find another position. And so, it seems like the sentiment here is that nobody's really interested in candidate number 2, right? All right. We can go forward with candidate number 3, if anybody's got comments.
But I guess just going back to candidate number 2 real quick, is that a reason we can exclude a person from going forward with an interview?
You can exclude them
It
for
is,
whatever. you
okay.
want.
But that was all.
Candidate number 3.
Because by the chart for candidate number 3, this candidate has the most experience, correct? Because I feel like somewhere else with another one of these candidates, one said like 30 years,
It has never been achieved.
but that was 6.
There is another one with close to 30 years experience.
And that was candidate 5, correct?
I believe it was.
And these
Yes,
are years
it's candidate
experience
Number 5.
in leadership or,
In the whole department? Yeah, is it like experience in leadership or just the department in general?
The department in total.
Okay.
So they don't. So on our chart, that only says 12 years.
But on the chart is 12 years is related to how they compare with the 5 years experience required. So on the chart, what I identified was whether they had 5 years or more of command
And
experience.
experience. Got it.
Right.
and then a question I have, so in the interview process or, I mean, I guess because there's like questions we're asking that we want all the, candidates to answer in general. And then there's things that might seem more specific to them, right? So like, for instance, for candidate number 3, they said they left their position in November 2022 due to a change in direction by the mayor. And I'm like, well,
What does that mean?
what does that mean? Right? So, but I mean, so I'm just wondering, like, where would some of those things get kind of figured out or explained? Yeah.
So the candidate had indicated that there was a change in direction, but as I looked at information through social media checks and reference information, there wasn't a lot related to the resignation other than the candidate decided to resign. However, as I asked more questions of the candidate, it appeared to me that there was more of a conflict where based on the information that the candidate indicated, because of decisions made within the department, the mayor disagreed. And it was more like a strong mayor form of government. So the candidate didn't feel like the support was there. So the candidate decided to resign. And that's basically what the candidate meant by change of position.
Wow, I'm glad you asked
Change
that
of
question because we would have never known that.
Yeah. But that's the narrative from that person. Right?
Yes.
And if we talk to the mayor, we'd probably get a different
That's
narrative.
correct.
Is it possible to talk to that mayor?
And we can, and we will.
Mhm.
However, at this point, the mayor was not provided as a reference. And so if in fact, this candidate is offered an invitation to be interviewed,
Mhm.
we can go beyond the process that I can take at this point in time.
Got it. So pay to play, right? If
Pardon?
pay to play. If we want to know the answer to that question, we have to offer him an interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. The other thing, the last thing I was just gonna say on, I'm interested. I have different feelings about things like Shop with a Cop. But I am interested in the idea that they're trying to be creative with different things in this lawn maintenance program for seniors. And so thinking about different ways of, building trust and being, and providing services to the community in different ways. I think would be interesting to explore, so.
Any comments from other council members on candidate 3? What's that? Francis, sorry.
I'm not a council member, but Was there any candidates that requested to remain confidential?
All of them.
That doesn't mean we can't release their name, does it?
If they request confidentiality, in order to release their name at this stage in the process, I would need to go back to the candidate and ask if they would like to waive confidentiality.
So what's the possibility that we could not publish the names until the interviews? I'm just asking.
Well, primarily, the information will be provided to the city if they accept an interview at that stage. So for example, after our meeting tonight, if there's a determination tomorrow or whatever that date is that you'd like to interview a candidate, I can reach out to that candidate. That information then would be forwarded on to the city.
Okay, so confidentiality no longer applies at that point. Okay, thank you.
My own thoughts on this candidate. Again, I am very curious about the situation with the mayor in the last city. Seems like a number of positions in small departments. It does have chief experience, but with much smaller departments and smaller cities. Population of 6,000. And the thing we don't know about this is geographic locations. If this is a city of 6,000 people that is a suburb of a 7 million, person city, then they're going to have different experience than if it's 6,000 people in the middle of cornfields. Which,
Can I describe Illinois?
yeah, well,
State?
that's where I'm from, so I know what that looks like. And grew up in that. I grew up in a town of 2,000 people. That was the edge of suburbs. So farm town. But yeah, I think this is that question about the mayor and the size of these, and I appreciate Councilmember Simmons' comments about the creative thinking about how to engage the community. And it seems like this person's been around, so there's not just in Illinois. Columbia College, I'm taking to be in New York.
Believe so.
Yeah, because there's a couple candidates. The next candidate as well is degrees from Columbia College. And are those? Not sure if those could be online classes at that point, but anyway, that's all the comments I have for that. Police, law enforcement, Illinois. Any comments on candidate number 4 from council or city manager?
So I guess the one comment I have is he's a working police chief. How quickly are we looking to fill the position? And since he is a current working police chief in another area, like after the interview.
Well, generally, we estimate the person coming on board within 30 days based on whether they're working or not. So for example, if they're actually in a department. Okay, if they're actually working in a department, it may take up to 30 days in order to bring the person on board with the new city. If they're not working, then they have more flexibility in those cases.
Thank you.
No comments? Ms. Rand?
So yeah, the one thing I would say that I'm picking up in here to think about is one of the things they say that this police chief is involved in every aspect of the operation. And I know that one of the things that has been identified and noted is a need for a strong focus and like culture of the department and all of that. So that sounds like maybe that would be something to delve into and learn about, but that maybe that would be a good match in that way. Because we need somebody who will feel like they can be involved, I think, and connect with folks across the department.
I think that is something that we can put to in the line of questioning to try to get a feel for, how hands-on they are.
I know, and of course, hands-on could be like micromanaging.
Well, not
or-
like that. but-
Right? So it's like, we don't, but either way, but yeah, I think it is interesting, but I just am lifting that because I know that was something that was pulled out as needing a focus, so.
And this is engaged out there touching the people, right?
Mhm. And then also the other thing is just, in terms of being able to work in partnership with the fire department, in terms of thinking about the fullness of safety, so maybe because they have experience working in the fire department too, so.
Councilmember King, do you have any further comments? Ms. Candidate?
No, that was all.
Looking at the experience, this is 12 years of command experience and 3 different police chief positions.
Are you on 5 or 4?
On 4, still on 4. So in Missouri, there's 3 different cities that they've been police chief in. 13 years total, but 3 different cities, 6 years for the first 2, and presumably 7 for the last position. They're all small communities. Do we know what constitutes a Missouri Class A peace officer? I've seen this on a couple candidates where they get that certification or license. And what sets that apart from other certifications?
Yeah,
And
I think it's very similar to the certification process in Michigan. It's just called something different there. That was my impression.
so it's not a difference in philosophy so
I-
much as just a name.
I think it's more the name, but I can certainly do some follow-up to try to give you more information on that part of it.
Gotcha.
But that was my impression.
Yeah, because the next candidate has the same.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, that's why I was thinking that
Native.
it's really like the certification process that they use.
Quick question.
Mhm.
So as far as education goes for candidate number 4, I see the 3rd and 4th bullet point, 2022 enrollment in Northwestern University Center for Police and Staff Command, and also enrolled in Purdue University Online Juris Doctorate. Currently enrolled, like still going through the program.
Yes. On the Juris
so-
Doctorate.
So how would that balance out doing schooling and police chief work at the same time?
That's a very good question.
Well, it's online, so, yeah, so I'm thinking there may be more flexibility.
Yeah, I just wonder about the focus.
That might be an excellent question to ask.
It's a very good question. Especially 2 programs at once, right? That's-
Mhm.
And I'm sorry that Councilmember Jay Simmons is not here because she was a police officer and she has a JD, and so she could speak to that with some experience, but if there's no further comments on candidate number 4, we can move to candidate number 5. I'm not sure where we lost Desiree to, but there she is.
Oh, yeah, I counted at 5.
Yep, just started, so. Do we know where National University is?
Oh. National University.
Are you asking for ideas about?
Yeah, any
things we talked about 5?
comments on number 5? It's fine.
So yeah, so this one is one of the larger, not the large, but yeah, one of the larger departments, so much larger and many more folks than we have. One of the questions I looked at, I was wondering, so this candidate said they're familiar with community internal issues in the Ypsilanti Police Department. And I was just wondering if they talked about like how do they have experience, know about us?
Yeah, now, and I had shared this as well with the city manager. This candidate was the only one that reached out several times asking for information about the city. And made the request through the city manager and provided the information to the candidate. So I think it was mostly with research.
Great. So they might have even reached out to other folks in the department and things of that sort, trying to be proactive. Well, I appreciate that. I think it's good to kind of get a lay of the land a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what folks, I don't know how typical it is, like in terms of folks that we would be looking at, in terms of folks who retire, like how many people who retire then come back, and like what that looks like for a smaller community like Ypsi to have that.
The one thing in law enforcement, because of contracts that are in place related to law enforcement, generally there's a provision in contracts that allow officers to retire anywhere between 20 and 25 years of service. So if they start early in their career, generally, if they reach that 25-year mark, they're still young enough to actually take on other positions in other departments. And so I think that's the interest, not necessarily with additional salaries or funding, as much as still being young enough to really seek out another career.
And this is the only one that's clear that this person is going to be at least 50 years old. I mean, not to speak to the age, but I mean, it is possible that they are still fairly young and do that.
Well, I appreciate, so too, they call out looking for opportunities for legitimate change here. I'm interested in how they might describe what change means. Or change in what way? And then this one thing too, it says the candidate has the trust of the community through the integrated community policing strategy underway in the candidate's community. So I'm just wondering, how was that determined? Was that by the candidate saying they have the trust of the community, or?
At this stage in the process, is based on the comments made by the candidate. And as part of the interview process, the candidate provided information related to some of the initiatives that are in place, and was actually put in place during the time that the candidate was in the current position. But the reference is based on the information that was provided by the candidate.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Yes, you will.
Well,
For the first one, we haven't had the first one. So as soon as we're done here, you can speak to that. Sure. Wasn't expecting a hand from out there. Thank you. Councilmember King. Any
Now, the concern that I was thinking was already addressed.
Mr. Tucson? All right. The thing that impresses me here, in addition to the comments that Desiree has made, that this is a very large organization this person's been a part of. They're not a chief, but they've had command within various divisions within this department. So a lot of experience in different perspectives within a department. What's that going to be like for this person to go to a much smaller staff, a smaller community? And I don't know the answer to that, but at some point they started out coming up through the ranks, and there's that experience. Like the labor relations and development and benchmarking, problem solving to achieve organizational goals. But again, this is self-reporting, so these work professional improvement and putting current organizations in a better place.
Can I add one more?
Sure, absolutely.
The other thing I would say, which could be interesting is, especially what you're saying in terms of thinking about, someone could be retiring that, but not necessarily be looking to fully retire kind of thing. And that this person has not been a police chief yet, that, maybe this experience would actually be a place of like learning and growth for them to kind of be able to put that experience into in a new way, and maybe be able to put into practice things that they might not be able to do when they're not in that role, based on some of these other things, if they've been trying to plan different things and, thinking about being in a position to actually implement change in different ways. So, that's really interesting, anyway, so I'm definitely interested in learning more about this candidate, and and thinking about, whether they could see this position as one where they can grow and kind of lean into.
I think the difference in experience here would be a great perspective during the interview process. I mean, as you go through interviews, you have questions that will come up, that interviewing this candidate would definitely shine light on some of the other candidates as well, and getting those things. So I'm definitely in favor of interviewing this person. Candidate 6. Do you have any comments?
Just based off of the last few sentences of, what is that called? Of the interview comments about how the candidate received a written reprimand in the position in Michigan for improper use of force several years ago. I'm gonna give that a no for my
Thumbs down.
Yeah, thumbs down.
Councilmember King.
Oh, my concern with this candidate is, well, I guess it's a question. He's certified in Alabama. How long does it take to get the certification in Michigan?
Generally, there's kind of a reciprocity process in Michigan if you're already certified in another state. And the candidate had indicated it would probably take certain classes, which would take about two weeks, but it would not be a lengthy time frame. And I agree with that. It doesn't take as long if you're already certified.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I know I already talked about my up and down feeling on this person. Do we have a sense of what several years is? And or any more information about the that was shared, or
It occurred around 2000, between 2013, I'm thinking closer to 2017, around that time frame.
Thank you.
Was this volunteered information or was this in response to a question?
It was, well, part of the process that I use when I interview. I ask questions about any information that might be of concern to
Mhm.
the city, and it was provided to me. And it also showed up in the social media chat that we do.
Got it.
Mhm. Did the candidate feel that the reprimand was correct?
Based on my discussion, the candidate took responsibility for what occurred at that point in time and indicated that it wasn't, according to comments, excessive force as much as improper use based on their procedures. Those were his statements.
I guess the other thing is, do we have more information about the, why he resigned, like what the comment was?
It appeared to me that it was related to other officers in another department, and there was some type of discussion back and forth. And in the department where the candidate was employed, there was some type of repercussion as a result of what would have been stated. And the candidate resigned as a result of that.
Thank you.
There's the comment again here that the person is familiar with the city. The previous one was doing his research. Does this person have a history in Ypsilanti?
The person has a history in Michigan and is familiar with cities in Michigan.
Got it.
As a matter of fact, the person actually is from Michigan and lived in Michigan for a number of years in the beginning of the person's career, as well as grew up in Michigan.
Went to school at Ferris State. And, yeah. With-
Well, I don't.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, because I'm just, I have a couple other thoughts, but I'm just kind of trying to get a sense as we go through, because Councilmember Tucson was like, gave a block, but if other people are like interested, I'm just like, so anyway, I'm just trying to get a sense of, because you're kind of just taking this in and then figuring out like, as the offers go forward. So I'm just trying to, there was one where most of us were like, oh, we definitely don't know, we don't want to move forward, but what would happen for someone if we're not necessarily clear? Or how would that help? Like, what would help you as you think about moving forward?
Okay, I'm not clear on.
Oh, I'm just saying, so because with this candidate 6, I was saying Rep. Tucson was saying no, like not being interested in us moving forward with this candidate. I'm not sure how everybody else feels, but I will say I feel like a little torn. Like that definitely stands out to me, this improper use of force. And this information, but anyway, so I feel torn about it because I feel like there could be more to it that I can't really tell from this information necessarily, based on some other things that they also talk about. Like they also talk about wanting to work in smaller communities because of impact that can be made and, things of that sort. So
Certainly I could try to pull together more information with the city manager, and maybe the city manager can whether to include the candidate or not include the candidate.
Okay, yeah. That's fine.
So I think at this point, the candidate 6 is, there's either ambivalence or a strong no. So not one of the strongest. candidates.
Yeah, I have questions, but I guess I don't get a vote on this part.
Well, I appreciate your comments. though.
But yeah, I was kind of concerned. I see that he has 8 years total experience in law enforcement. Is that right? According to the chart?
Summary.
Yeah,
Yeah, now the summary really reflects command experience.
okay, so he has 8 years of
Of command
command experience. Okay, because when I was looking at all the things that I saw that he'd only had 18 months as a,
In the last position.
okay,
That's an airport,
an airport. Yeah, I just was
police
kind of,
authority, right? Right.
is that where he's currently employed, as an airport authority?
The candidate at this point is not employed. He was there for 18 months.
See, these are things we gotta draw out. So why isn't he not employed?
He resigned primarily based on.
Oh, okay, this
This
stuff,
crowd, yeah.
this, okay. All right, I would, if I had to choose alone, I would say no.
And is it possible to like figure out what exactly that comment was or no?
I mean, I guess if people don't feel, then we guess we could just say no. Maybe,
I'm comfortable with that.
I mean.
Any other comments on candidate 6? No, all right. Candidate 7, associate's degree from Schoolcraft and business administration. Any thoughts from council?
I'm not counsel. I had a question. Is this candidate? Okay, never mind. I'll pass.
I have a question about, so it says that they work for a software firm that sells software and technology to police organizations. And I'm interested in what kind of software and technology.
License plate scanners.
I mean, I'm interested. I mean, yes, I am interested for those reasons. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not that type, but based on the discussion. Is software that is provided to various police departments as part of their operation to facilitate a smoother operation within the department. That was my understanding. It wasn't the other type that we just.
Great, thank you.
As 7 years of command. Councilmember King. Thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't really have much. I do like the fact that he says he's a good, well, not he, this candidate says they're a good communicator and put the community first, because I know that was one of our priorities.
Mhm. Councilmember Tucson.
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Simmons.
You know, I mean, obviously I like the idea, or maybe this isn't obvious, but I do like the idea that this person feels local in different ways, like they have a degree from EMU, and you know, anyway, so I just am naming that, that's nice for someone to have some familiarity with the city because they've been here. And I don't know, is this an example of a person who's also maybe retiring or no?
The person actually
Did return.
is retired and was doing the software representative position after retiring.
Okay, oh yeah, recently retired, yes, okay.
So
I was
there's-
just looking at that salary number too and seeing.
But they never was a chief, right? They got
That's
it,
correct.
okay, this
Deputy
is,
chief.
Deputy chief, yeah.
they was never.
And the software company, it's only been 6 months that they've been involved with that.
Which makes sense based on their degree.
Yeah.
You know,
City manager, do you have comments on this? Yeah.
No, thank you.
I find this educational history very interesting. I have to think that a person with a sociology degree is going to have a different take on community relations than just about anybody. He's got the business administration, technology studies. It seems to be a fairly diverse set of education here. This person has been a deputy chief for 5 years and spent the rest of their career in the same department. And this is about 90,000. So let's see if I think about the map of Michigan, where could that be,
I don't know, what, tell me, what are some places in Michigan that have 90,000?
Grand Rapids,
I was thinking
Flint,
Grand Rapids.
Lansing, Saginaw. I don't know.
Troy?
Well,
Is Detroit really only that? No?
60,000, 600,000. About 500,000 people in Detroit.
Oh, well, you were saying Detroit.
No,
Oh,
I said
sure.
Troy.
Troy. Oh, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. I was like, Detroit. No. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Again, the experience here is not as extensive as a lot of the other candidates, but the diversity of that experience is kind of interesting. Longevity in one department is also interesting. At this point, we've got, with the comments that we've had before, there were 7 candidates. We kind of eliminated 3, 2 with strong and 1 with an ambivalent position. But I think that leaves us with 4 candidates that are fairly strong and represent different levels of experience and education. 2 of them they're all about, the same experience in terms of command time, between 10 and 13 years for that. But with very different experiences from within the state of Michigan and without the state of Michigan. And so if that's, reasonable for going forward with those 4. Does that seem reasonable to council at this point?
Yes.
Shake a head. And
Or, yeah.
does that get you where you need to be, Ms.
Yes.
Parker? And
I just have a question. It seems like out of the 4, there are candidates that are located out of state.
Mhm.
So just want to let council know ahead of time that in these kind of cases, we reimburse for, okay,
and
so that you would know
sure.
at the time.
So
Okay.
should we have fewer from out? Should we send that?
So if I'm correct, just for clarification, the numbers are 3, 4, 5, and 7.
that's what I have. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, council, thank you. Anybody have any questions before I wanted to thank Joyce?
No, thank you, Ms. Parker. This has been a great experience to go through these, and thank you for your time and your patience.
Well, thank you.
Do you have any further comments this time? All right. In that case, we're going to move on with our agenda. What's that? Public comment. Before we get to public comment, anybody averse to taking a 5-minute break?
I support that.
All right.
And then visit.
In that case, let's recess for 5 minutes. Meet back here at where did Mr. Tucson go?
It's just leftovers.
Like to call the meeting back to order. Everybody's had their break. Care to join us, Mr. Tucson?
Mhm.
So for folks that have arrived here, I just want to point out that we have changed the agenda this evening. And so the public comment has been put after the work session, so people could get some information from that if you weren't here for that. But also that the ordinance amending Chapter 7 has been removed from the agenda tonight. And so if you're here to make public comment during that, that will not happen. So if you're here to make public comment, this current time that we're about to start is appropriate for general comments. And so with that, I'd like to remind folks that this is not a back and forth conversation, but a chance for you to give your opinions on, the city and issues at hand in a concise way that we will take in and may follow up with, but it won't be a conversation at this point. So with that, I'd like to call the first person that had signed up, and that's Anthony Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anthony Morgan, 108 Normal Street. City Manager, Ms. Parker, who's gone, Council. I want to say thank you for, I understand this is a very extensive search. It's very meaningful, very necessary. And it's extremely difficult in this extremely difficult job of policing and serving the community. Just a few notes. I was thinking that I'm totally interested in supporting the candidate that's has a high degree of training, collaboration and cooperation in their skill set, has a background or some knowledge of geographic policing, community policing, implicit bias, and climate and culture policing. When they get on the job, if they're being vetted perhaps they would get a look at our 5-year plan of IPSI and how safety and security and any points that coincide should be considered. So I want to remind council of the power that they actually hold, and being a new employee for the city manager, a person who has proven work alongside other, especially in the new area, work alongside city managers and council and other staff well. Knowing that we have the city of Ypsilanti has low compensation packages, and most people are going to have to take a cut. I hope that they are hearing some of what they were being paid and not knowing what we're offering. Hopefully they get used to understaffed personnel and budget constraints, because that's definitely something they're going to walk into here in our city. Hopefully we can get someone who's a proven leader, but not a maverick. I thought the rubric was it's just impersonal. I know it's just black and white footage. Black and white letters, but I thought maybe a 2-minute video hearing their voice, hearing what they're saying. I know there's going to be a difference in the future, but that really was just more technical information. But I did hear through my sources that there was a candidate who came here to IPSI, spent their money, hung out, and got to learn the community, got research from the community, and started breaking bread with people on their own accord, on their own dollar. And I'm like, that was really, didn't know who it was, but that's really that sounds big. That's a lot of initiative to come to our city and an attempt to show themselves. Being a part of YPAC, Ypsilanti Police Advisory Commission, I'm sure I'll have a seat somewhere to hear how we're going to build bridges with the new leader of the police force and the body of the police commission and work alongside council. And we were 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Our next speaker is Beth Gibbons.
Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Gibbons. I live at 183 North Mansfield, and I'm here tonight. And I know that we're missing some council members, but I wanted to introduce myself and the Sustainability Commission to the council. So I'm the chair of the Sustainability Commission, and the Sustainability Commission was formed in 2017, and it is driven by goals to create a model of sustainability and advocate, educate, and promote social, environmental health for our community now and in the future, to broaden the lens and scope of energy and environmental concerns for the future, and to recognize the natural resources as a chief asset for the city. Following up from its inception in 2017, we passed a sustainability plan in 2021. And so that's where the Sustainability Commission turns to as we're establishing our work plans and our priorities for the year ahead. And we meet on the first Monday. So our next meeting is going to be on the 13th. So anybody who is here, I'd welcome you to join us. Anybody on council, whoever wants to come and join us, you are welcome. Council Member Simmons is our current liaison. Previous to that, Council Member Wilcoxon was, or Mayor Pro Tem. So, sorry. I did want to note for you that we have a major goal of education and engagement on the council or on the commission. And this year we're going to be hosting our Earth Day event, or EDY4. It's taking place at the Freight House on April 16th. And we are putting forward a request to council for $1,100 to help to support the artists, the musicians, and just the green-minded kind of craftspeople and community members who are helping to make this event possible. We've had a line item for Sustainability Commission in the budget in the past, but with COVID and just events kind of going away, I think that fell off. And so it's something that I'm going to be interested in us bringing back and making sure in the future we have these kind of commission budget lines so that there's a little more flexibility and opportunity for the commissions to be able to drive their priorities forward with a budget. Lastly, we have 2 vacancies currently. We also have 2 youth spots open. And so if you know folks who may be interested in participating in the commission, I encourage you to have them go online, fill in the form, and feel free to send them directly to me and I can reach out to them. And for our youth seats, we're looking for people who are under or 18 to 24 who live in the city of Ypsilanti. We've often had those seats vacant, and they're really great voices for us to have. And so if there's anybody that you can think of that you could send our way, I would appreciate that. So yeah, you'll see a request come through for the budget for the Earth Day event. Otherwise, I hope that you will join us, and you can find more about that event on Facebook. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Is that 1,100 or 11?
1100. Clerk Kalenga, I saw a shake of your head on that. Can you clarify the age limits for the youth?
A youth member is 16 and 17. They have to be under the age of 18.
Our next speaker is Mr. Rajabi. Welcome.
I'm crying wolf as usual. I've been coming here for 6 years, telling the city council members how the city has been treating me. They practically put me out of business. My rental properties were supposed to be my nest eggs for when I retire as a teacher. They're gone. Both of them are gone. I could not pay city taxes, and on the top on that, not making any money at all. I'm going to give you a couple examples as to how the city inspector treated me. The city inspector comes to my property and he insisted that my front porch needs a rail, and I knew that it didn't. After 45 minutes of arguing, he left. My next door neighbor says, he left angrily. He says, Reza, kiss your security, he said to me, kiss your certificate of occupancy goodbye. And I said, I know. But why are you saying that? He said, he left your place angry. After a month and a half, Mr. Rowe sent me a letter saying, you're right. Your front porch does not need a rail. No apologies. City officials will never give you apologies. I'm assuming that it is the advice of the city attorney, that not to give any citizens any apology. He came to my front porch another time and he says, to the basement of my rental property, saying that it needs a rail. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that you guys have instructed your city inspectors, go into those rental properties and make sure that you will go again and again and again, because it is not free to inspect. You guys charge us an arm and a leg. The first time he came, you need a rail. The second time he came, I had to use a 2x4 as a rail. He says, no, that is not graspable. He comes for a third time, okay? When he comes back for a third time, what I had done was I had cut the 2x4 and turned it to a 2x2. No offense to anybody, but my middle finger is not even 3 inches. And here's my thumb. Here, is it graspable or not? Is it graspable? He didn't pass the inspection. When he comes back for the 4th time, just 1 second, he gets something out of his pocket, his mobile, and shows me something from Lowe's and says, this is what you're supposed to get. I said, that is $3 a linear foot. You wanted it to be graspable, and it is graspable. He did not pass the inspection. You made me poor, people. You, all of you, you made me poor. If you think that I'm going to forget, you're mistaken.
Thank you, Mr. Rajabi. Our next speaker is Michael, which I can't read your last name, but welcome back, Michael.
Michael McAtee, 703 Virginia, City Council Manager. I'm the Vice Chair of the City Arts Commission, and I'm here speaking in favor of Resolution number 47 to approve the budget amendment for the Youth Poet Laureate Program. Very briefly, together with the Embracing Our Differences project and the project which put the youth art up on the City Light Post banner, the Youth Poet Laureate Program is quite easily the best presented, most prepared project that we have seen come through. And like, we really believe we've got an opportunity to continue a really strong program that has been in the city or in Washtenaw County for quite some time, that is successful both on the state and regional, national levels. And that we can really find, like, we've got an opportunity to really hold on to some talent in the area and really to promote some local talent here in the high schools and the schools, and really provide like a very inspirational, like a point of inspiration here at a time when poetry, and especially youth poetry, is in like increasing prominence here, both regionally and in the nation. So again, yeah, I'm urging you to please vote in favor of this amendment. And I really think that would be like a really, really strong addition to the city's cultural and arts offerings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hollinger, is there anybody else from the audience that would, the in-person audience that would like to speak to the council?
My name is Gina Thompson, and I just want to introduce myself. I'm here with Michael and Elise, and I'm the chair of the Arts Commission. And we are very excited about this Youth Poet Laureate, but also we were part of bringing Embracing Our Differences to the different parks in Washtenaw County and are working with them again. And we also have a third project that I think is really respectful. Which one is it?
Certainly.
Can't hear you. The survey, which she's also going to be talking about. Survey has something that we started at the beginning of the pandemic and have finally, completed and are ready to do. And so we're just now getting active and feel very confident that we brought some things to the table that are very interesting for the city of Ypsi.
Thank you. Anyone else from the in-person audience? Mr. Hollinger, is there anyone online?
If anyone participating virtually would like to make comment, please raise your hand now and you'll have 3 minutes to address council. Council, no hands are raised.
Thank you for that. Moving on with the agenda, it brings us to our consent agenda, and I believe that Councilmember Tucson, you have that resolution? Resolution
43.
43.
40.
Thank you. Thought I had gone in that direction. But, yeah.
All right, resolution number 2023 -043. Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the following items be approved. Resolution number 2023 0-044, approving the minutes of the February 21st and 28th City Council meeting. And resolution number 2023 045, approving ordinance entitled zoning text amendment supportive housing, second reading. So moved. Support.
Support. Is this roll? Thank you. You.
Councilmember Tucson,
Yes.
Councilmember D Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen,
Yes.
the 4 yes and 3 absences, the motion carries.
Next resolution is 2023 046, and since I was out of order where I thought I left these, if you.
That's me.
You got it. Thank you.
Resolution number 2023 -046. Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti. Whereas the City of Ypsilanti desires to cultivate a community, culture, and environment that embraces and nurtures artistic and creative assets. And whereas the City of Ypsilanti desires to promote and further diversify equity and inclusion of all Ypsilanti in the arts. And whereas the Arts Commission desires to collect information from the community about the arts to inform the commission in its role with the city, share this information with the local, state, and national arts organizations, and provide insight on the current state of the arts in Ypsilanti, and the rest will be read into the record. I so move.
You have support?
Support.
Have a presentation. Hello.
Hi, good evening. This is my first time at City Council, so bear with me. My name is Elise Jacobson, and one of my roles at the city is the Arts Commission liaison. The agenda before you may look familiar because City Council approved this very community arts survey, its RFP and action plan in October of 2021. Staff is expecting a $4,000 grant from Tremaine Foundation soon after, but funding only reached our account in November of 2022. Unfortunately, this calls for a budget amendment in order to move forward with the RFP for the community arts survey. The intent is to collect information from the community about the arts to inform the commission in its role with the city, share the information with local, state, national arts organizations, and provide some insight on the arts in Ypsilanti at this particular time. Because the time has passed since the original approval on this survey, which was in a consent agenda back in October 21, the Arts Commission updated the survey by removing COVID-19 specific questions, replaced question number 22 with more relevant question, and changed the action plan's budget to include translation services for the survey itself. The Arts Commission does recommend that the action plan be implemented immediately, and then the RFQ be distributed by staff to arts management programs at EMU, WCC, and to the general Ypsilanti community. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council or comments? None? I do have one question. On page 54 of our packet, it goes through the dates start with last month, and then goes on to say that this is all going to be done by March 28th. And I wonder if you have an updated.
Yeah, we were hoping to get this on a little bit sooner in February, but it got pushed another council meeting. So we do hope to catch on, have the RFQ or RFP out, and then to get it all prepared so that the surveys can be distributed during most of the events, arts season starting in the spring.
So, but with the same kind of window,
Yes.
just starting a
Yes,
month or
just
two later.
just pushing it a little bit further.
Alright.
So
Thanks. It's the only question I had. There's no other comments. Mr. Hunninger, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Tucson,
Yes.
Councilmember D Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Councilmember, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen,
Yes.
4 yes and 3 absences. The motion carries.
Next resolution is number 2023-047 with approving the budget amendment for the Youth Poet Laureate Program. And I believe you have that, Mr. Tucson.
All right, resolution number 2023-047, resolved by the council of the city of Ypsilanti, whereas the city of Ypsilanti desires to cultivate a community culture and environment that embraces and nurtures artistic and creative assets, whereas the city of Ypsilanti desires to promote and further diversity, equity, and inclusion of all Ypsilanti in the arts, whereas youth voice and community engagement are vital for empowering young people to affect positive change in their community and beyond. Whereas the City of Ypsilanti Arts Commission, whose purpose is to act as an advisory body to the mayor, city council, and city manager for all things art in the city, identified that the Youth Poet Laureate program satisfies the commission's keys and objectives. And how do you read into the rest into?
You can just say.
Let's read the rest into the record. And I so move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments from council?
Yes.
Councilmember D Simmons.
So, I mean, I'm really excited about this. Just in general, being a poet myself, I'm excited about this and have had the opportunity to work with Ciata, who put this forward previously. A couple of quick questions I have. I'm just trying to understand. So the funding that we're being asked for would pay for a program coordinator. So would that be somebody who would then be a staff person of the city?
So I have the program coordinator would be Ciata. She came to us with a proposal for the Poet Laureate program.
I see. And then the program coordinator is primarily working to get the foundation of what this would look like moving forward. So so that we could pilot it or kind of have it be in process for 1 year and then see where we go.
That's the idea. So the budget we're asking for is just for the first year. And then hoping that it, with the pilot, it is a success, and then we can come back and do it every year. But yeah, Ciata would be working to basically implement all the programming, engage all the poets, everything needed to get done, and would work with the Arts Commission and staff to help select the next poet laureate and support that person.
You have further questions?
Mm,
We can come back if you like.
yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilperson Tucson, any questions or comments? Councilperson King,
No, I don't have any.
you have further questions, D. Simmons?
No, it's good. I
Okay,
guess,
yeah.
well, I guess, okay.
I prepared a whole thing to explain. And so let us
Yeah,
know.
no,
And
I guess-
Siada is also here to answer any questions if you want to ask any direct.
Oh, great.
questions.
Hi,
On Zoom,
Siada.
on Zoom.
So wait, so then the only thing I was just for clarity, so Siada would be not be coming on as a staff person with the city, but we would just kind of as a contract.
Yeah, that's that's how we're looking at it. It's
Mhm.
kind of like hiring Siada as a contractor to implement the program.
And then the Arts Commission would support Siada and work
Yeah.
through the goals. and everything?
Yeah. So we're hoping that and Siada would be coming and reporting to the Arts Commission, speaking to staff. Siada also has support from Molly Raynar, who ran the program in Ann Arbor in the past. So there will be a lot of support. And we already had people at our Arts Commission meeting and in the public comment saying that they want to put their hand in and help make this happen as well. So.
Are you done? All right. I have a number of questions. In the talking about the budget, there's a line in there that says the minimum budget is $6,500. What is the optimum budget for this first year, or has that been discussed?
We haven't discussed an optimum. I'm sure Siada can maybe comment on that. So I know that she was being fairly conservative with, making sure that this is something that is palatable, but I know there's going to be more work than $6,500. So
in the program itself, there's $1,700 for the person who is chosen to be, well, there's $200 for food and things like that. But then there's money for the person who is chosen to be the poet laureate. Are there other awards for other participants? Typically, these kinds of programs have, awards for second place, third place, things like that. Has that been contemplated?
Seattle, I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, so me and Molly decided to have like the runner-ups of the program become essentially like ambassadors of like our program. So like if any like organization or any like public place in Ypsi needs performers or poets for a certain event, we can like have them come on as performers and have them as like a circle to choose from to perform at like prestigious events that happens like around the Ypsi Ann Arbor area, just so like their work won't go unnoticed after the poet laureate is announced. Does that help?
That's great information. I'm just curious about a monetary award, and it seems like everything goes to the winner and to the coordinator, but there's no other provisions.
With a larger budget, I think that we could.
That's why I was asking the question about the minimum budget. The other question I had was how this was going to be administered, but you've addressed that. So it's a 1099 versus W-2 position.
Yeah, I'd be working with finance and probably Christopher to figure out how to make sure that this works.
All right. given that this is 1099, then there's looking at the budget as a city staff person is very different. So that's crossing that one off. I was curious about this. Our agenda also has new policies for the mini grant, and I'm curious about why this wasn't proposed as a mini grant, because this is a youth program, and we've had that in process for quite some time. And why is this outside of that program, other than the fact that this is, I can imagine this is not a non-profit, which is a requirement for that program. But how is this different? And because those budgets are only $5,000 a piece, and so I'm trying to figure out how this is significantly different from those mini grants that we get.
If that's a $10,000 mini grant that we had seen, from what I understand, there wasn't anything in the budget for that, but yeah.
Yeah, because I was just gonna ask about that, like whether some of this funding could come from the mini grant pool of money. That was actually gonna be a following question I had. So. My observation there is that this is more that we require more from the applicants for the mini grants than we do for this. But this is a bigger budget than that. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to get at, how we justify it.
We looked at this as like, if like an artist coming to the Arts Commission and saying, here's this proposal we have, and kind of moving forward that way without knowing about exactly how the mini grant youth budget line item looked like. So
yeah, I guess the other questions I have are similar in terms of relation to that program. And so the Arts Commission is coming forward with these two budget amendments. To date, I haven't seen any budget line items for any of the other commissions, and this is interesting that here we have this. This is bigger than the mini grants. This is infinitely bigger than any other ask by any other commission at this point. And so I need to take that into account. And as we go forward with the budget, looking at the requests that are going to come from the Sustainability Commission and other commissions in terms of those kind of budgets. Question for city staff and financing is, what fund is this going to come out of? I don't think it would be appropriate to take this out of the mini grant, because there's a whole different set of conditions that need to be met for that, and this certainly doesn't qualify for that. But I'm curious about how this is going to be financed through that. I mean, let me step back a minute and say, I think this is great. I think this is a really great program, and I think this is something we need to think about. I just need to consider how this fits in administratively compared to all the other programming that we're going to try to fund.
Well, the leads that would help jump in if we had budget questions like this. So good to see you, council. It would come out of the general fund, similar to how Bicentennial works. They're fundraising money to cover the cost of Bicentennial, but that comes out of the general fund. And so it's entirely within the purview of city council what money to allocate to boards and commissions to carry out their mission. And this is one thing that the Arts Commission has identified would be a necessary budget out of the general fund.
At this point, do we have any other questions from council? Mr. Halinga, could you call the roll?
Councilmember Tucson,
Yes.
Councilmember D Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen.
Yes.
Motion carries with 4 yes and 3 absent.
thank you.
Now that we have this, I think Councilmember Simmons, you had this originally.
Okay. Resolution number 2023-048, resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas funding has been programmed in the Major Streets Fund pavement capital maintenance in the city of Ypsilanti, and whereas MDOT has solicited sealed bids and awarded the work for the project, and whereas MDOT standard practice is to request local participation on projects where work is performed outside of travel lanes and has requested $8,200 from the city. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti approve MDOT contract number 22-5550, and the mayor, Nicole Brown, and city clerk, Andrew Halinga, are authorized to sign this contract, subject to review by the city attorney. And I so move.
I have support.
Support.
Thank you. Ms. Wessler,
Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen.
do you have anything for us? Director Wessler, sorry.
I'm really just here to answer questions. It's fairly straightforward.
Are there questions from council? Thank you. Of course, I have questions. It does seem fairly straightforward. Questions I have are kind of physical questions. We're talking about the parking lanes on the bridge.
Yes.
The sidewalks on the bridge are significantly deteriorated. There's there's pawling, there's rebar sticking out, there's all of that in the contract. There's a statement from MDOT that says that they are not responsible for any of that is adjacent, and then we are responsible for upgrading that appropriately. Is there any intention to upgrade those sidewalks at this point?
So I will likely be able to work some of that out with the project manager. We've been able to work together fairly well on the Huron and Hamilton stretch. It will depend upon how much money for concrete is in his budget. But we will be able to address likely some of the more outstanding issues. I cannot promise anything, and MDOT cannot promise anything.
So this is kind of, if there's enough, we'll do your driveway, right? We'll do your sidewalks. So this spoke specifically about those parking lanes on the bridge, but who's responsible for the parking lanes between Huron and Hamilton? Are we still responsible for those, or somehow that a different category?
Somehow that's in a different category. So it depends upon the agreement that was struck with MDOT at the time of their creation. So it actually varies area by area. So what we found when we were doing West Cross, that we thought we were going to be on the hook for about $50,000 to repave the parking lanes there. We were not, because at the time of their creation, MDOT did not sign an agreement for the maintenance. With the parking lanes on West Michigan, we will be responsible for those just as we are with this, but it is not a universal if this, then that condition. It is what was put into place at the time of the conversion from travel lane to parking lane. Does that answer your question, or clear as mud?
There's mud.
Yeah.
I guess we're still responsible for those, but somehow it's a different arrangement.
Yes.
But cost-wise, we're still
Cost-wise, we're still going to be on.
putting that there, and it doesn't require a different contract. I did notice at some point that in the contract that there's one clause that calls us a village. Whatever. And the non-discrimination clause that is not as inclusive as the cities. Does that need to be rectified in any way?
I don't believe it can be rectified in any.
Because it's a state contract and they determine. All right, had to ask. That's all the questions I have. So if there's no other comments from council, Clerk Conlon, can you call the roll?
Councilmember D Simmons,
Yes.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Councilmember Tucson.
Yes.
Motion carries with 4 yes, 3 absent.
And our last resolution the night is 2023-049, approving policy to govern the youth mini grants provided by the city. And I believe Councilmember King, you have that?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the City of Ypsilanti wishes to provide financial assistance through many grants for local nonprofits that work with youth, and whereas for several fiscal years, City Council has budgeted $25,000 that will be allocated in $5,000 increments to applicable organizations, and whereas a written policy will both benefit the applicants and city officials in the allocation of these funds. Now therefore it be resolved that the city council of the City of Ypsilanti approves the attached policy with immediate effect. That's a move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there questions from council or comments?
I have some. So it's interesting that you brought this up in relation with the other one in terms of thinking about the differences in requirements. Because I actually wonder about some of these requirements, especially in terms of thinking about reporting and things of this sort. And this is definitely coming from a space in my role doing nonprofit work and thinking about the burden we put on nonprofits and organizations when doing grant writing and reporting, and especially for really like not large amounts of money. And so, you know, I just have, I wonder about that and pulling those back. So for instance, thinking about like financial statements, what the grant was used in supporting documentation, results and impact. You know, I believe like if we grant it, we should trust them to use it. And then the proof will be in the pudding, like did the work happen? Yeah, I'm wondering, you know, some of these things they ask about, like you, information pertaining to evaluation criteria. I wonder, like, what does that mean? Like, how deep do we need to go? And, you know, what requirements we have to put forward and what things we're kind of putting forward to, you know, to have within a process. So those are some general things, a couple of kind of looking at some specific pieces, but well, before I go on, I'm wondering about, you know, thoughts about that, like if there's things that we could just remove as being some of the requirements.
Is there a staff presentation for this? I mean, we're just here for answers.
Yeah, I'm just here. I can answer questions if you like. But I thought it was pretty self-explanatory, but council can look at the funding policy that we did submit and recommend changes or edits if you like. But basically, this is just giving the policy, you know, a format.
Mm-hmm.
And making it more organized, and so that we have an open time that you apply. And then we return the reply. And so that we're keeping up as well with where the funding is going and to what it's going to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the idea of having the policy and the time, because then, you know, I know for the committee, then we know we're just really looking at, applications. And I don't know with this time period, if it's still rolling within that time period, if it's more like it's open here and then it closes and then we will go through.
Right. There's an opening period where anybody can apply. Then we close it and the committee goes through them and we award.
Okay. So yeah, I appreciate that. I think like having the timeline is really nice and great. And so, yeah, I think my comments, and so those would be some edits I would want to put forward. So I guess I could move for those, but I'm happy to wait until there's other discussion if there is some.
There's no big rush on this. You can feel free to forward us any edits or changes that you think we need to put in here. And we're not trying to make it extra hard for people to
Yeah.
apply.
No, I think some of the different things are things that are in practice. So, but I do think that there's some shifts in terms of thinking about funding and thinking about, you know, how much time we want organizations to spend doing different kinds of work. And so I would love for, you know, for money that we are putting out in the city in this way, that we kind of are pushing ourselves a little bit in that way. So.
So clarification, you're currently on the 3-member panel,
Yes.
correct? And the other
Mhm.
2 are
Councilmember King.
Councilmember, it switched. Cool. And the other Councilmember Simmons, right?
I'm unsure who the third person is.
Is it the mayor?
No,
It's not.
it might be Councilmember Simmons, Jay Simmons.
Because it was, last year it was
One from
Simmons,
each
Brown,
ward.
and Somerville. And you 2 are now on it.
Yes, I guess it would probably be process of elimination.
Yeah. Mr. Barr.
Generally, the city cannot give money away. They cannot give it to nonprofits. They can't give it to other organizations. They can, however, contract with nonprofits if the nonprofit is fulfilling a public service for the city or some public purpose for the city. So it's a question the city should be able to determine, is this a public service that meets the city requirements? And then it's the question of how much reporting do you want to have to verify that?
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Burr.
Further comments?
No. Well, I mean, I don't know what would be, if it would be easier to table this and then I could just send those couple of edits, or I could just most of them I probably could just say now, but what would be easier for you, Francis? Would you prefer me just to send you?
How many do you have?
I guess I'd like to interrupt here and say, I'd like to have that conversation too.
Mhm. Or we could table and just bring it back.
Bring it back in the
You
next
know.
meeting and rework this. Is that
Yeah.
amenable to
No rush for
other
this.
folks? Okay, cool.
All right, so then I'll make a motion to table this resolution.
Support.
Any further discussion on tabling? No? Mr. Halinga, would you call the roll?
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Councilmember Tucson,
Yes.
Councilmember D Simmons,
Yes.
4 yes and 3 absence, the motion carries.
I'd just like to say that, yeah, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and it does clarify a lot of the questions that have come up in the past in terms of the timeline. Certainly gives gives council a better view, long view on an annual basis, because in the past, there have been times where this has come up and it was kind of nickel and diming into it. And then we got to the point where it's like, oh, well, there's no more money, or, you know, it's like, that's where that was. And having it being on a rolling schedule was problematic. And I appreciate, you know, you know, this is very clear. It's fairly thorough. I had one comment here that, let me see that. Nope, that was not it, but yeah, this seems for, you know, a small grant, there's a lot of reporting requirements, but, you know, nonprofits, if they're going into, you know, funding of any type with larger foundations and things like that, they're used to that. I mean, but there are some of the recipients in the past, this would be intimidating too, I think. You know, we've given these grants to people that, and organizations that probably would have to get some help doing this. And so I hope we can come to somewhat more relaxed, but still stringent enough that we get what we need to to know that the money was put to good use. So, and to help distinguish between worthy applicants, should there be, over the limit of the funding within a given year. So I look forward to this discussion at the next meeting. So,
Thank you. And I want to thank Clerk Kalinga for working on this with me. Thank you.
this brings us to board and commission liaison reports. First commission is Police Advisory Commission. That's Mr. Tucson.
Nothing for
Human Relations Commission.
Nothing to report today.
At this point, Arts Commission. Our liaison is not here, but we seem to know what they're up to, right? Parks and Recreation, Mr. Sweet is not here. Historic District Commission, I believe is Jennifer Simmons. Planning Commission, we haven't met since the last time we were here, so Zoning Board of Appeals, I believe is also Jay Simmons. Liaison reports, SEMCOG update. I attended a green, what are they calling it? Green committee. It's got a different name, but it's basically a green committee, and it's a number of people from throughout, what's that? No, it's the task force. Sorry, the Green Task Force. Knew it would come to me. And so they're looking at creating this task force, and had a number of people on a virtual meeting that went into breakout sessions to look at green infrastructure. And so folks like County Drain Commission and various people from similar roles from around Southeast Michigan had weighed in on that. I was in on that group. And so there was another group on preservation that I didn't attend, that will be coming forward with, and they're basically just trying to set the groundwork from a high level so that they can go through with the programming on this and have goals for that task force as it moves forward. So I'll update when the next meeting comes for that. So Washtenaw Area Transportation Study, I believe is Jennifer Simmons. Urban County. Yep. Ypsilanti Downtown Development Authority here as well, and Christopher is gone. So Friends of Rutherford Pool, that's me. Had a meeting last week. They're looking into, as I mentioned before, they're looking into resurfacing the pool. There's 3 different rounds of DNR funding. Now we're in the point where the city had put through a submission for the first round, and to my knowledge was not granted. And so now there's a question of whether the Prospect Park project or this goes in on the second one. And I don't know if there's been conversations about that with the
Not yet.
pool chair. But they're looking at that. They're currently reassessing the contractor that they had gotten estimates from. There were some issues with that, and so they're going through and they'll be writing up a resolution and forwarding it to council about that. But the numbers will change, so it would have been ready for this meeting, but as of last week, they've decided to go with a different vendor. So so that will be coming forward, hopefully in the next meeting. So Bicentennial Committee. Again, not here. Council proposed business. Let's start on the left side. Councilmember King.
So real quick, I just want to say thank you to the council members that assisted me with assisting residents during the snowstorm and Francis McMullen. I also appreciate the residents that reached out and I was able to help them. And that's all.
Councilmember D. Simmons.
Yeah, agree. Did get folks sending in thanks for a lot of work by our Department of Public Services, as well as our fire department and other emergency services for support during the outages and the storms and clearing streets. So thank you. I also have had some folks reaching out around thinking about traffic calming and speeding on a number of streets, including someone who reached out about some previous, they had a question because they had put in, they said they gathered signatures, but then haven't heard back. So I might forward that along if it didn't.
Is this for speed humps?
Maybe it might have been speed humps. Sorry, let me pull, I should have had that one up already. This is for Miles Street. Yeah. Yes. Yes, and I think they said, so they said, okay, at one point they said this, they did say they could not be because it's a secondary emergency route. So I guess, okay, so they're looking for some sort of action, flashing light at Garland, pedestrian crossing figure in the middle of the intersection. They were saying like anything. And and I know, so this, I know that previously I was suggesting trying to think about ways to kind of have folks involved to think about traffic calming overall. I was listening to a podcast actually, and somebody shared a story about in Colombia that they actually had a large number of their police department, and they actually said, you're no longer the police, you are now mimes. And so then they had folks that they put on around the traffic corners and they mimed, and that was a successful way to calm traffic. So I'm just naming that I'm really open to having a very creative focus on how to do this, because it so you know, either way, I think that there's a lot of things that people in different places are doing for traffic calming, and you know, speed bumps, I agree, aren't always it, but I just, y'all know how things dealing with parking and cars and driving are my most favorite topics, but I'm just bringing it forward because it does, I just get a lot of emails, and this person, so I can forward around that, but I think they're just looking for something. So, and then the other thing I want to do is, it's actually really exciting that I get to do this when we're talking about poetry. A couple of council meetings ago, we had public comment that said that council needed to shush. And so I wrote a poem in response, and I'm going to share it. As I get ready for this, I want to call into space my untold stories of liberation and love sisters who help to always support me in poetry. So Julie and Maria, Catalina, and Tanya, thank you. This poem is called Democracy Shall Not Be Shushed. What does democracy mean, we ask? Faces drawn weary from the days and nights that compress and expand time, usually not for our own benefit, but for someone else's. Some say it is about using our voices, but when we do, we are shushed. Shush, says the status quo, afraid of what happens when sounds of liberation ring through the hall of decision-making, upsetting the silence that allows it to steal hope right in front of our faces. Shush, says the power hungry, unwilling to share space with those new to the practice of naming what is necessary in the insufficiency of what is done in the name of the community. Shush, says the fascists, aware that power in others is easier to stop before the momentum spreads, as the masses see themselves in the stories of shared struggle, in the stories of love prevailing against the odds. Shush, says the man to the woman, confused when they said a fox once told them, you can't expect to sit back and observe. You have to be ready to speak about what you believe in. So she learned to always be ready and to lift her voice in service of the people. We are more than our vote. We are complex without easy answers. Simple assimilation will do no longer. We are not here to play democracy. We are here to practice inquiry and curiosity and exploration, asking why and what if and what's next. We invite you to join us in this practice because the conditions are ripe to change what is possible. If only more of us are welcome to lean in, we can govern how best to be in time. Don't tell us we shouldn't because you couldn't. Democracy shall not be shushed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's good for now.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Roland, you got a tough act to follow.
I don't have nothing at this time.
You don't have anything at this time. All right. I have there was also some conversations in Normal Park about the state of the speed bump survey or on Congress. There was a petition that supposedly was submitted. Yeah, and I thought that the speed signs and measurements were out there at some point. And so I was just looking for update on that. I received a call this afternoon from a resident on Whittier who lives across the street from the apartments that back up from Washtenaw. And with the recent snow, there have been, the snow removal crews for those apartment buildings have been pushing the snow out into the street. But I witnessed that. It's the next block up from my house. I was out there at 12:01 on Friday night, helping people get through that and into that parking lot. When they did that, they pushed it out into the road, and my understanding is that's illegal. They're not supposed to do that. And in this particular case, with the heavy snow, they stopped about 4 feet short of the curb on the other side. So there was a lot of snow out in the street. And so this resident has been there for some time and has witnessed this many times. And so the question is, what from staff perspective can be done about this? Is an enforcement, code enforcement person goes out. She's called a couple times. Once it was a code enforcement, once it was an actual police officer in a patrol car that came out. So if you could clarify what their recourse is for this, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'll clarify, but I think it is enforcement.
Okay. And so they would come out, and what I said to this person was that this is going to be similar to, a ticket for not clearing your sidewalk.
Exactly.
Basically, but with the obstruction of a public roadway, I don't know if there's any more gravity to that.
Yeah, so that's two separate things. Have you guys ever issued any obstruction because of the snow? Mm-hmm.
There could be body camera footage, there could be anything if there's any dispute about what's there.
Right, and with the melting, yeah, obviously that's
Right.
But okay, and I will check it out tonight. Apparently, there's still quite a mass there, but I'll see and
Yeah,
get
if you
back
have
to you.
addresses, pass them all.
What's that? Yeah,
pass
it's
them along.
1928 Whittier.
Oh, 1928, okay.
Covington, yeah. The recent power outages brings up to me, in going out and checking on my elderly neighbors and making sure that they were warm and safe and had transportation and needed to be where they were, brings up the topic of resilience centers. We hosted a number of people that had generators that would help them with heat, but had no lights and no refrigeration and things like that. And so when we got power after we were out for a couple days, we had a house full of people, and it was great. And people came over to charge their phones and to use refrigerator and freezer space. And so, that helped with us. But, the Sustainability Commission has been working on programming for sustainability hubs for some time. I think this is a good time to rethink that and look at allocation of resources to that. I spoke with Beth Gibbons, the head of the chair of the Sustainability Commission, about that programming, and so there will be something coming forward from them. But this is exactly what that's aimed at, and to have generator backups at some of the sites around that have been identified in town, and to have battery backups. This is exactly the extreme that it's in cold weather and people are in their houses. So just want to draw attention to that and say that, I'm looking forward to what's going to come forward from that. What else? That's it. And since the mayor's not here, it's to you, city manager, for comment.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for the work that you did on the police search information tonight. I appreciate it. Appreciate the direction. If you don't know, I think I said that the YPAC will be helping host the community event. So we'll be working with them to find a location and to actually set aside some funds to make a reception or a meet and greet happen. So that's one thing. The other thing that I found to be interesting was Mayor Pro Tem's comment about the sustainability hubs. I believe also Councilmember D. Simmons had kind of talked about that and mentioned some things about hubs. So we're going to do some research to see what other people are doing. And I welcome any kind of information that you have, that maybe we can model something after, especially with how it's funded. I appreciate it, but I'm also interested in that, seeing that I was out of power and a lot of my relatives were out of power, and it wasn't like one day. There were some 8 days. I got Councilmember Michelle did a really good job rallying around her people, but 8 days was a lot. And so I think we do need to have some alternatives. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think having a presentation from Sustainability Commission on the work so far would be great. Communicate
That
with
would be
them.
good.
So, yeah.
And that's all I have.
All right. We have a communication here that the March 21st meeting we'll have a work session from 6 to 7 on Water Street. So looking forward to that. And now we are open for the second round of public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to address council? Anyone online?
If anyone participating virtually would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. You'll have 3 minutes to address council. One hand is raised.
One hand is raised.
Horace Frazier Jr., I'll allow them to speak now. You may address council. You have 3 minutes. You are currently muted.
My name is thank you, Pro Tem, Mayor. My name is Horace Frazier Jr. I live at 944 Watling Boulevard. And like people spoke about the power was out, I was out of power. And I had help from former Mayor Lois Rich Richardson, and she got in contact with Heidi Johnson at the county, and also Michelle King got in touch with me regarding the power outages. And thank goodness for Lois and also one of the other neighbors, Marie Williams, that live on the same area, that was having problems as well. A lot of us had partial and then completely no power for 4 or 5 days or more. And from those power surges, we lost refrigerators, we lost microwaves, and other devices, and had our food and stuff like that. But Heidi gave me a form to fill out, so I got to get that in, and it can be submitted to possibly getting a new refrigerator, and items, and getting the repairs done and stuff like that. Because it was, we had burning wire smell from the power surges. So I told my neighbor Marie to crack a window and unplug everything, and that's what I did in my home. I had power go out of my kitchen. I had power go out in a room across from my bedroom. Like now, I don't have any power in the bathroom, my bedroom, the room across my bedroom, in the hallways and other different areas that don't have any power at all. The water heaters burn out. So I've been using cold water. And like for those days that I was out, I was sleeping in my fully dressed in my clothes and in 2 sleeping bags, and the freezing water. It was kind of hard to wash up in that. So I'm glad I survived it. I did my praying and all that good stuff, but thank goodness for Lois, Heidi, and other neighbors that was looking out for each other to get some help. Is my 3 minutes up?
Not yet.
Not yet.
And I thank them for taking care of getting it, like the trees that crashed down in my front yard. I was gonna go out and get that stuff when I come outside, and the city had already moved it. I said, "Oh, thank you, Lord," because I got this operation that I got to have, and I shouldn't have been out there trying to lift it anyway. But when I went to lift it, it was already gone. And then the other day I was out in the yard, and the trucks come by getting all of them branches and limbs, and the plow trucks come through and clear the streets and put the salt and stuff like that. And hey, I was really pleased with seeing how the city come together with doing all of that work in the community. It made me feel good. I'd wave at the guys in the truck and let them know that I really appreciated it. And Heidi sent one of her staff members to bring me the form, and I showed him. I said, "Hey, man, I got these chest coolers, and I ain't letting that snow go to waste. And so I fill them things up with snow, and put my food that was in the refrigerator, perishable stuff, and showed him. I said, "Hey, man, I wanted to get this snow in these coolers before the rain melted away the snow." So he come in here, and I brought him in, invited him in the house. He looked up and he cracked up laughing. I said, "Hey, man, you got to improvise. You got to survive." I said, "Hey, if the Eskimos could survive to what they go through, I ought to be able to survive in this house and freezing." But my prayers and the goodwill and determination to look after my property. I was practically born and raised in that house on Watland Street. My family lived there before I-94 was on the drawing maps. And I'm a Vietnam vet. I'm a disabled vet. I'm at a class now where I teach guitar for vets that's dealing with PTSD and stuff like that. I'm active in the VFW, the American Legion, the Disabled American Veterans, the Military Order of the Cooties. I'm the chaplain of 6th District from Lansing all the way down to Monroe with the VFW. I'm also on the honor guard with the VFW state of Michigan, VFW. I'll be doing something for at Great Lakes National Great Lakes National Cemetery for Memorial Day. I'm also in the Military Order of the Cooties, which is an auxiliary that you have to be selected to be invited to be a part. That's a part of the VFW.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 3 minutes is up. But I want to thank you for your comments and praise for the neighbors that helped you out. I'm also glad that you survived. And I hope that the community that was built continues to be supportive of one another.
Oh yeah, man, I dig that. Hey, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There is one, Miss Epps has her hand raised. I'll allow them to speak now. Miss Epps, you'll have 3 minutes to address council.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was muted. I was just concerned a little bit, and I was wondering if you guys had any information, because to my understanding, we get our water supply from Wayne County, from Detroit. And with the recent dumping of the soil from East Palestine there, and us not being aware of the environmental impact that will have on, not only the soil there, but the runoff to the water. And then that's where we're getting our water supply. Have we started to address that or look into that at all?
As a public comment is not geared towards
Oh,
a
okay. I'm so
conversation.
sorry.
That's fine. I
Okay,
can
I'm
follow up
sorry.
with you on that. If you can give contact information, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Is there anyone else online?
Anyone else would like to make comment, please raise your hand now. No further hands are raised.
No further hands are raised. I'm going to take advantage of my seat for the moment for the remarks from the mayor. The recent power outages, some sustained for 8 days or more, some on and off. I experienced 2 different power outages in the last week or two that were for multiple days at a time. So with that, while sleeping on the floor with my grandchildren in a place that had heat, I was thinking about the plight of other people in the city that were not fortunate enough to have someplace with heat to go, and not fortunate enough to have a shelter at all to be in. And thinking about that and lying there at 2 o'clock in the morning, just getting more and more aggravated at the situation. And people talk about this being an act of God, and there's only so much that people can do about that. I'm incensed at the level of while there is that community that has stepped forward to support each other, the fact is that we have one of the worst service power companies in the country and some of the highest rates. And I find that troubling. And I don't see that the way that this is being managed, or even from the state level, that the regulatory authority is really addressing that. And as Michiganders, we have suffered through this for years. And I was at a meeting last night with Senator Irwin, and he, was just chomping at the bit about this. But and I share those sentiments. I mean, I think we have drawn the short end of the stick with the power company that we have. And I think we need to investigate other ways of getting our power. We pride ourselves on being a solar city. And we've seen over the years that the way that people who install solar power on their homes have been treated by the power company. from, standard metering to now something that is just disincentivizing installing solar power. And so as a solar city, I find this, very frustrating that we are in this position. As a city, as Desiree was saying last time, the A2, there's a movement to get out from an under DTE as a region. And I think as we go forward, we need to explore that on a much more intense level and lobby our state legislators to change the tack on how we deal with the power company. So I'll step down off my soapbox. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Supported.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.